Holding the hand of another woman, Devon's voice thundered, "I never loved you!" Marriott fell to the floor, her tears staining the cold ground as her world crumbled around her. The autumn wind whistled through Manhattan's towering skyscrapers as Marriott Bonvoy hurried through the crowded streets, her worn leather portfolio clutched tightly against her chest. The contrast between her simple cotton dress and the sleek designer suits surrounding her couldn't have been more stark, but there was an undeniable grace in her movements that turned heads wherever she went. At 23, Marriott carried herself with a dignity that belied her difficult circumstances. The loss of her parents in a tragic accident 2 years prior had left her alone in the world, but not broken. She had fought her way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs, earning her degree in business administration with honors. Now she worked as a junior analyst at Conway Enterprises, one of the city's most prestigious financial firms. Devon Conway first noticed her during a quarterly review meeting. While other junior employees nervously fumbled through their presentations, Marriott stood tall, her voice clear and confident, as she delivered her analysis. Her intelligence shone through every word, and her natural beauty was enhanced by the passion with which she spoke about market trends and investment opportunities. Devon was everything the media painted him to be, devastatingly handsome at 35, with steel-grey eyes that seemed to pierce through every facade, and a smile that had graced countless magazine covers. His business acumen had turned his family's million-dollar company into a billion-dollar empire. But success had made him arrogant, entitled, and used to getting whatever he wanted. Their first real interaction came during the company's holiday gala. Marriott had saved for weeks to buy a simple black dress that made her feel elegant enough to attend. She stood near the window, observing the glittering crowd, when Devon appeared beside her with 2 champagne flutes. "Your presentation last week was impressive," he said, offering her a glass. "You saw opportunities that even our senior analysts missed." Marriott accepted the champagne with a gracious nod, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. "Thank you, Mr. Conway. I believe in thorough research." "Please call me Devon," he smiled, and for a moment the carefully constructed walls between their social classes seemed to dissolve. What followed was a whirlwind romance that defied social conventions and raised eyebrows throughout New York's elite circles. Devon took her to exclusive restaurants, bought her designer clothes she initially refused to accept, and showed her a world she had only glimpsed from afar. Yet Marriott never lost her humility or forgot where she came from. Their dates were a fascinating dance of contrasts. While Devon tried to impress her with expensive wines and luxury cars, Marriott showed him the beauty in simplicity, taking him to small jazz clubs in Harlem, introducing him to soul food at her favorite local restaurant, and sharing stories of her parents and their dreams for her future. For the first time in his life, Devon found himself captivated by someone who cared nothing for his wealth. Marriott's laughter was genuine, her interest in his thoughts rather than his bank account was refreshing, and her understanding of business made their conversations endlessly engaging. In quiet moments, he caught himself imagining a future with her, something he'd never done with any of his previous relationships. The office whispers grew louder with each passing week. Some admired their courage in breaking social barriers, while others predicted doom. Marriott's colleagues, once friendly, became distant, assuming she was sleeping her way to the top. But she held her head high, letting her work speak for itself. Their romance bloomed over 6 passionate months. Spring turned to summer, and they spent weekends at Devon's Hampton estate, walking on private beaches and sharing dreams under starlit skies. Marriott began to believe that love truly could conquer all, that their different backgrounds and skin colors didn't matter in a world where 2 hearts beat as one. But beneath the surface of their fairy tale romance, cracks were beginning to show. Devon's mother, a socialite who prided herself on her family's old money status, refused to meet Marriott. His business partners made thinly veiled racist comments during board meetings, and slowly Devon's insecurities about his public image began to overshadow his feelings for Marriott. Still, Marriott remained optimistic. She believed in their love, in Devon's gentle touches and passionate kisses, in the way his eyes softened when she spoke about their future. She trusted that their connection was strong enough to weather any storm, a belief that would soon be tested in ways she could never have imagined. As summer waned and autumn returned, Marriott noticed subtle changes in Devon's behavior. His calls became less frequent, their dates more rushed. He began attending social events without her, claiming it was better for business. Yet she made excuses for him, understanding the pressures he faced as a public figure. What Marriott didn't know was that Devon had already begun to succumb to the pressures of his social circle. Behind her back, he was entertaining the idea of a more suitable partner, someone his mother would approve of, someone who wouldn't complicate his carefully cultivated image. Even as he held Marriott in his arms, he was plotting his escape from their relationship. The charade continued until that fateful morning when Marriott discovered she was pregnant. As she sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the positive pregnancy test, her hands trembling, she felt both terror and joy. She believed that despite their recent difficulties, Devon would stand by her side. After all, they had talked about marriage, about building a life together. Little did she know that her announcement would shatter not just their relationship, but her entire world, setting in motion a chain of events that would span decades and transform both their lives forever. As she prepared to share the news with Devon, Marriott stood before her mirror, smoothing her dress with shaking hands, completely unaware that she was about to face the greatest betrayal of her life. The story of Marriott and Devon was just beginning, a tale that would teach valuable lessons about love, class, race, betrayal, and ultimately justice. But in those last precious moments before everything changed, Marriott still believed in fairy tales, still believed that love could bridge any divide, still believed in Devon Conway, the ultimate betrayal. Dear valued readers, before we dive into this heart-wrenching chapter of our story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more compelling stories of love, loss, and redemption to life. Don't forget to like and share if this story touches your heart. Now, let's continue with Marriott's journey. The morning after her pregnancy revelation dawned with a cruel brightness that mocked Marriott's sleepless night. Her apartment, usually a sanctuary of peace, felt suffocating as she prepared for another day at Conway Enterprises. Despite Devon's cold reception of her news, she clung to a thread of hope that he just needed time to process the information. She arrived at the office earlier than usual, her simple navy dress pressed to perfection, one of the few designer pieces Devon had insisted on buying her. The security guard, Mike, gave her his usual friendly nod, unaware that her world was crumbling. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than ever, each floor's gentle ding marking the countdown to what would become the most devastating moment of her life. As she approached Devon's office, voices drifted through the partially open door. Laughter, feminine and light, mixed with Devon's deeper tones. Marriott's heart stuttered, but she reminded herself that business meetings were normal. She was about to knock when the voices became clearer. "Darling, you're absolutely wicked," the woman's voice purred, dripping with privilege and amusement. "I can't believe you kept her around for so long." "Victoria, you know how these things are," Devon responded, his voice carrying none of the strain it had held yesterday. "Sometimes you have to explore different options. But you're the one I want to build a future with." Marriott stood frozen, her hands suspended in midair. Through the gap in the door, she could see them. Devon, seated in his leather chair and perched on his desk, was a stunning white woman in a red designer dress, Victoria Ashcroft, daughter of one of New York's oldest banking families, and apparently Devon's true choice. Her feet moved of their own accord, pushing the door open fully. The scene before her crystallized in painful detail, Victoria's manicured hand resting possessively on Devon's shoulder, the intimate way they leaned toward each other, the matching expressions of annoyance at the interruption. "Marriott," Devon straightened, not quite meeting her eyes. "You should have scheduled an appointment with Margaret." Victoria's perfectly painted lips curved into a cruel smile. "Oh, is this her? The little charity case I've heard so much about?" She slid off the desk with practiced grace. "Darling, you really should have told her sooner about us. It's been, what, 3 months now?" 3 months. The words echoed in Marriott's mind like a death knell. While she'd been sharing her hopes and dreams with Devon, while she'd been falling deeper in love, while their child had been conceived, he'd been seeing Victoria. "I think it's time we clear the air," Devon said, standing to wrap an arm around Victoria's waist. "You were an interesting diversion, Marriott. A different kind of experience. But surely you didn't think it was anything more. Someone in my position has certain obligations, certain expectations to meet." Victoria laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Oh, honey, did you actually think he was serious about you? A girl from your background, dating Devon Conway? It's like something out of a bad romance novel." Marriott's hand instinctively moved to her stomach, and Devon's eyes followed the movement, hardening. "About your announcement yesterday," he said coldly. "My lawyers will be in touch. We'll handle this discreetly, of course. You'll be compensated for any inconvenience." "Inconvenience?" Marriott's voice emerged stronger than she felt. "This is your child." "Darling, don't be tedious," Victoria sighed. "If you're smart, you'll take whatever offer he makes and disappear. It's really best for everyone." The room seemed to spin, but Marriott forced herself to stand tall. Years of facing adversity had taught her the importance of dignity. "You're right about one thing," she said quietly. "This was like a romance novel, the kind where the villain gets exactly what he deserves in the end." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "And Devon? Keep your money. I'd rather my child have nothing from you than grow up thinking what you've done is acceptable." The walk to the elevator was the longest of her life. Employees quickly averted their eyes. News traveled fast in corporate offices. But Marriott held her head high, tears refusing to fall until she reached the privacy of her apartment. Inside her sanctuary, she finally allowed herself to break down. She cried for her lost love, for her innocent child, for her own naivety. But as the sun set on that terrible day, something else stirred within her, determination. She would survive this, she would thrive, and one day Devon Conway would regret underestimating her. That evening, she made 3 decisions that would shape the next 19 years. 1. She would leave Conway Enterprises immediately. 2. She would document everything about their relationship and his betrayal. 3. She would raise their child to be everything Devon was not, honest, compassionate, and true. In her small bathroom, Marriott looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was steel in them now. "We'll be okay," she whispered, touching her stomach. "Mama's going to make sure of that." What she couldn't know then was that her child would indeed become her greatest triumph, not just as a mother, but as someone who would help deliver the justice she deserved. The universe has a way of balancing its scales, and Devon Conway's day of reckoning was already written in the stars. Dear readers, if this chapter moved you, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us continue sharing powerful stories of resilience and redemption. Turn on notifications to never miss an update as we continue to follow Marriott's journey from heartbreak to triumph. Coming up next, After 19 years, a son's quest for justice brings him face to face with the father who denied his existence. Don't miss this powerful confrontation that will shake the foundations of Devon Conway's carefully constructed world. A Son's Courage. Dear valued readers, get ready for an emotionally charged chapter as 19 years of silence finally breaks. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to follow this powerful story of justice and redemption. Your support means the world to us. 19 years had transformed Devon Conway's office into an even more imposing monument to wealth and power. The mahogany had been replaced with sleek chrome and glass, but the atmosphere of privilege remained unchanged. On this particular autumn morning, Devon sat in his ergonomic chair, entirely unaware that his carefully constructed world was about to shatter. Marcus Bonvoy stood in the lobby of Conway Tower, his mother's eyes staring back at him from his reflection in the polished marble walls. At 19, he carried himself with the same quiet dignity that had helped Marriott survive her darkest days. His charcoal suit was impeccable, not purchased with Conway money, but earned through his own merit as a young tech entrepreneur. "I'm here to see Mr. Conway," he told the security desk with quiet confidence. "Tell him it's about Marriott Bonvoy." The name caused a stir among the older security staff who remembered the scandal from years ago. After a flurry of calls and whispered conversations, Marcus was escorted to the executive floor. The secretary, not Margaret, who had long since retired, tried to delay him, but Marcus simply smiled and walked past her protests. When he opened the door to Devon's office, the scene before him confirmed everything his mother had ever told him about his father. Devon Conway, now in his 50s but still devastatingly handsome, had a young woman perched on his lap, both of them laughing over something on his tablet. "Security!" Devon bellowed, outraged at the interruption. "How dare anyone enter without authorization?" Marcus closed the door behind him quietly. "Don't bother calling security, Papa," he said, his voice soft but carrying the weight of 19 years of absence. "I told them I'm your son. Surprisingly, that still opens doors in this building." The woman scrambled off Devon's lap, straightening her skirt in embarrassment. Devon's face had drained of color, his eyes fixed on Marcus's face, a face that bore an unmistakable resemblance to his own. "Get out!" Devon snapped at the woman, who hurried from the room. Once the door closed, he attempted to regain his composure. "I don't know what kind of scam you're trying to pull." "Scam," Marcus smiled, taking a seat without invitation. "That's an interesting choice of words from a man who scammed my mother out of her dignity 19 years ago. But don't worry, I came prepared." He reached into his briefcase and withdrew a folder. DNA test results, medical records, and a rather comprehensive collection of evidence about your relationship with my mother. Devon's hands shook slightly as he took the folder. "Whatever you want." "Money?" Marcus laughed, the sound eerily similar to his father's. "I made my first million at 17, Papa. Unlike you, I built something without exploiting others. No, what I want is something money can't buy. Justice." He placed a court summons on the desk. "We're going public with everything. Your treatment of my mother, your attempted bribe, your denial of my existence. Every sordid detail." "You can't prove." "Oh, but I can." Marcus pulled out his phone, playing a recording of Devon's voice from 19 years ago, discussing Marriott with Victoria. Mother was wise enough to document everything. She knew this day would come. Devon slumped in his chair, suddenly looking every day of his 54 years. "What do you want from me?" "Want?" Marcus leaned forward. "I want you to feel what Mother felt. The shame, the humiliation, the public scrutiny. I want your current wife to know the kind of man she married. I want your business partners to understand who they've trusted. I want the world to see Devon Conway for what he really is. I'll pay anything." "That's your problem, Papa." Marcus stood, straightening his jacket. You think everything has a price, but some things, integrity, honor, family, those can't be bought. Mother taught me that. He walked to the door, but paused. The court hearing is tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late. Oh, and one more thing. He turned back with a smile that was pure Marriott. That tech startup that's been outperforming your company in every market. The one your board's been pressuring you to either buy or compete with. That's mine. I wanted you to know that your own son beat you at your own game without ever compromising his principles. The door closed behind Marcus with a soft click, leaving Devon alone with the evidence of his past sins and the knowledge that his chickens had finally come home to roost. Outside, Marcus texted his mother, "It's done. He'll be there tomorrow." Marriott's response was immediate. "I'm proud of you, baby, not for confronting him, but for doing it with dignity." Marcus smiled, stepping into the elevator. The security guard who had let him up nodded respectfully. "Have a good day, Mr. Conway," he said. "Bonvoy," Marcus corrected him. "My name is Marcus Bonvoy. I'm proud to carry my mother's name." Dear readers, the confrontation you've been waiting for has finally happened. But this is just the beginning. Will Devon face the consequences of his actions? How will his current wife react? What other surprises does Marcus have in store? Subscribe and turn on notifications to find out in our next chapter. Don't forget to like and share if you're Marcus Time Team. Comment your thoughts on Devon's reaction. Follow us for daily updates on this gripping saga. Stay tuned for Chapter 5, where the courtroom drama unfolds and Devon's carefully built empire begins to crumble. Thank you for being part of our storytelling journey. A son's courage. Extended confrontation. "What gives you the right to walk into my office?" Devon snarled, trying to mask his shock with anger. "I don't care what you told security. What gives me the right?" Marcus's laugh was cold. "Perhaps the same right you had to walk out of my mother's life when she needed you most. Or maybe—" He paused, pulling out a handkerchief and slowly wiping the chair before sitting. "It's the Conway blood running through my veins. That's what matters most to men like you, isn't it? Bloodlines and appearances." Devon's face flushed red. "Listen here, you little—" "No, you listen," Marcus cut him off, his voice deadly quiet. "For 19 years, I've listened to my mother cry herself to sleep on my birthdays. I've watched her work 3 jobs to put me through the best schools. I've seen her decline dates because she was afraid of men like you. So now, Father," he spat the word like poison, "it's your turn to listen. I don't have to—" Marcus leaned forward, his eyes, so much like Devon's own, blazing with controlled fury. "Did you know I was in the same hospital as you 3 years ago? You were there for your charity gala, making speeches about helping underprivileged children. I was in the pediatric ward having my appendix removed. Mother worked overtime for months to pay those medical bills. You were just 5 floors away from your own son, drinking champagne while she counted pennies." Devon shifted uncomfortably. "If she had contacted me—" "Don't you dare!" Marcus's fist hit the desk, making the crystal paperweight jump. "Don't you dare imply this was her fault. She kept every letter she wrote you, every email that bounced back, every call your secretary blocked. Would you like to see them? I brought copies." He patted his briefcase. "I brought copies of everything." "You can't prove that I'm your son?" Marcus smiled, pulling out his phone. "Funny story. Remember Thomas from your legal team? He retired last year. Turns out he had quite a conscience about helping you bury those paternity test results from 19 years ago. He kept copies, said it was the biggest regret of his career, helping you deny your own flesh and blood." Devon's face went pale. "Thomas? He wouldn't—" "He did, along with Margaret, your old secretary. She remembered everything, how you made her shred Marriott's letters, how you were seeing Victoria behind Mother's back for months. Amazing what people will share when they're retired and no longer afraid of losing their jobs." Standing up, Devon tried to regain control. What do you want? Money? A position in the company? Name it. Marcus stood too, straightening to his full height, an inch taller than his father. See, that's the difference between us. You think everything can be bought, but Mother taught me better. She taught me that integrity isn't for sale, that dignity matters more than dollars. Then why are you here? Devon's voice cracked slightly. To show you what you missed, to let you see the son you threw away. Marcus pulled out his phone again, showing headlines about his tech company's success. Every time you complained in board meetings about the brilliant upstart stealing your market share, that was me. Every innovation that made your technology look obsolete, that came from the son you denied. I wanted you to know that your own blood outperformed you without ever compromising their principles. You're behind Byte Vision Technologies. Devon sank back into his chair. Poetic, isn't it? The son you refused to acknowledge became your biggest business threat. But don't worry, I'm not here for a hostile takeover. Mother taught me that revenge is a waste of energy. I'm here for justice. He placed the court summons on the desk with deliberate slowness. Tomorrow you'll face not just me and Mother, but every person you've stepped on during your climb to the top. Victoria will be there too. She's quite eager to testify about your character after you dumped her for your current wife. You've been planning this for years, Devon whispered. No, Father. I've been succeeding for years. This, he gestured to the summons, this is just clean-up, making sure the truth comes to light. Consider it a lesson in consequence. Marcus walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and one more thing. That charity hospital gala where you ignored your sick son. I bought the hospital last month. Renamed it after Mother. Now every time you drive past, you'll see her name in lights. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving Devon alone with the weight of 19 years of chickens coming home to roost. The truth unveiled. Dear treasured readers, brace yourselves for the explosive courtroom scene where secrets come to light and justice takes center stage. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to witness every moment of this gripping revelation. Your support keeps this story alive. The New York County Courthouse stood imposing against the morning sky, its marble columns witness to countless battles for justice. Today, it would host perhaps its most sensational case of the year, Bonvoy versus Conway. By 8:30 a.m., the courtroom was already packed with journalists, social elite, and curious onlookers. Devon Conway arrived first, flanked by an army of expensive lawyers. His current wife, Elena Conway, walked beside him, her Hermes bag clutched tight. Her face a mask of practiced indifference, but those who looked closely could see the tension in her jaw, the slight tremor in her manicured hands. At precisely 8:55 a.m., a murmur rippled through the crowd. Marriott Bonvoy. Crumbles, billionaire admits to abandoned love child. Tech genius Marcus Bonvoy revealed as Conway heir. Elena Conway files for divorce, demands 50% of 8.2B fortune. Devon. Conway sat alone in his penthouse office, watching his company's stock price plummet on multiple screens. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the space that once represented his power. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since yesterday's court confession, but he ignored it all. The board members demanding answers, the shareholders threatening legal action, the society friends suddenly remembering prior engagements. His assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. Mr. Conway, the board has called an emergency meeting. They're waiting in the main conference room. Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes, he replied, straightening his tie in the reflection of his darkened computer screen. Meanwhile, across town in a trendy Soho cafe, Marcus and Marriott sat with their PR team, managing the fallout in their own way. Your stock is up 30% since the news broke, their lead strategist reported, showing Marcus the numbers. The public loves the story. Brilliant young CEO proves himself without his father's money or name. We're getting offers for book deals, movie rights. No, Marriott interrupted firmly. This isn't about profit or publicity. This is about healing. Marcus squeezed his mother's hand. She's right. Decline all entertainment offers. Instead, let's focus on the foundation we discussed. Back in the Conway Tower boardroom, Devon faced his reckoning. Board members he'd known for decades looked at him with barely concealed contempt. The shareholders have lost confidence, Devon. Richard Sterling, his oldest friend on the board, spoke first. The stock has dropped 45% since your confession. We need to consider emergency measures, another board member added. Perhaps if you step down temporarily. I'll resign, Devon said quietly, surprising them all. Effective immediately. Devon, think about this. I have. For the first time in decades, I'm thinking clearly. He stood, buttoning his jacket. I've spent my life building this company through manipulation and fear. I've sacrificed everything that actually mattered. Integrity, love, family. It's time for change. As he walked out of the boardroom, his phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor's lawyers. Client demands expedited divorce proceedings. Prepare for extensive asset discovery. Across town, in Marcus's sleek Byte Vision Technologies office, a different kind of meeting was taking place. The Bonvoy Foundation for Single Parents, Marcus announced to his executive team, will provide education grants, healthcare support, and business startup funding. Mother will serve as chairperson. The timing is perfect, his COO noted. With Conway Enterprises in freefall, we could consider an acquisition. No, Marcus cut him off. We grow through innovation, not predation. I won't become him. That evening, as Manhattan's lights began to twinkle, 3 separate scenes unfolded. In her new Waldorf Astoria suite, Elena Conway met with her legal team, methodically planning how to claim her share of the empire. In his empty penthouse, Devon Conway sat with a glass of scotch, looking at old photographs of Marriott he'd kept hidden for 19 years. And in Marriott's cozy Brooklyn brownstone, mother and son sat in their garden, planning not revenge, but resurrection. The foundation will help others like us, Marriott said softly, sipping her tea. Turn our pain into purpose. Marcus nodded, but his attention was caught by a breaking news alert. Conway Enterprises CEO resigns, stock in freefall. His phone buzzed with a text from Devon. I know I have no right to ask, but could we meet? There's something I need to show you both. Marriott read the message over his shoulder, her hand trembling slightly. What do you think he wants? I don't know, Marcus replied. But maybe it's time to listen. 2 weeks later, Devon Conway stood nervously outside Marriott's Brooklyn brownstone, a simple bouquet of daisies clutched in his hands. Gone were the tailored suits and expensive watches. He looked like an ordinary man, humbled by life. For a moment he considered turning back, but then the door opened. Marriott stood there, her eyes widening in surprise. Devon? Hi, Marriott, he said softly. May I come in? She hesitated but stepped aside, allowing him into her warm, inviting home. Marcus was already waiting in the living room, his posture stiff as he watched his father enter. Marcus, Devon greeted, his voice tinged with emotion. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Marcus gestured to the couch. Say what you came to say. Devon sat, his hands gripping the bouquet tightly. I know I don't deserve this. I know I've caused both of you unimaginable pain. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for what I didn't do. I failed you both, and it's the greatest regret of my life. Marriott remained standing, her arms crossed. Words won't change the past, Devon. I know, he nodded. That's why I came with more than words. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. This is everything. Every letter I intercepted, every piece of evidence proving my neglect. I want you to use it however you see fit. If it helps the Foundation, then it will have served a better purpose than I ever did. Marcus took the envelope, his expression unreadable. Why now? Because I've lost everything else, Devon admitted. But watching the two of you build something so remarkable without me made me realize how small my world has been. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a place in your lives. I just wanted you to know I'm proud of you. The room fell silent. Marriott's gaze softened, though her stance remained guarded. Marcus finally spoke. Pride is easy, Devon. It's the work that counts. If you're serious about making amends, then prove it. Not with money, but with action. What can I do? Devon asked earnestly. Start small, Marriott said, her voice firm. Volunteer at the Foundation. Listen to the stories of the people we've helped. Learn what it's like to give without expecting anything in return. Devon nodded, tears brimming in his eyes. I will. Thank you for giving me a chance. As he stood to leave, Marcus stopped him at the door. One more thing, he said. Don't call me your son. Not yet. That title has to be earned. Devon swallowed hard, but nodded. Fair enough. The downfall of Devon Conway. The sound of the courtroom's gavel echoed in Devon Conway's ears long after the final ruling. As part of the settlement, he lost control of his company. Half of his remaining wealth went to his second wife, Elena, and the rest was consumed by lawsuits and public outrage. With no allies left, Devon became a shadow of his former self. He moved to Miami, far from the chaos of New York, hoping to find solace, but his isolation only deepened. The once proud billionaire was now a man broken by his choices, wandering the streets aimlessly. Devon rarely spoke, his steel-grey eyes, once intimidating, now hollow and lost. Children in the neighborhoods often mocked him, pointing at the disheveled man in ragged clothes who muttered to himself about what could have been. Sometimes they threw stones or followed him, imitating his incoherent ramblings. Devon hardly noticed. The weight of his regrets had pulled him into a world of his own. The Bonvoy legacy. Meanwhile, just a few miles away, Marriott Bonvoy thrived in the life she had rebuilt for herself. Her modest but beautiful home overlooked a park where she spent her mornings with her two grandsons, Nathan and Liam. Marcus had grown into a loving father and husband, ensuring his mother was surrounded by warmth and care. The Bonvoy Foundation flourished under their leadership. Stories of Marriott's resilience and Marcus's innovation inspired countless others. Their work provided scholarships, mentorships, and business grants to single parents and aspiring entrepreneurs. Together, they had built something that not only honored Marriott's struggles, but gave hope to thousands. A chance encounter. One evening, as Marriott strolled through a bustling Miami street market with her grandsons, Nathan tugged on her hand. "Grandma, look, that man is singing to himself." Marriott turned to see Devon sitting on a street corner, his once impeccable appearance replaced by tattered clothes and a weathered face. He was humming a tune she vaguely recognized from years ago. For a moment, their eyes met. Devon froze, his lips trembling as recognition dawned. "Marriott," he whispered, but his voice was weak, barely audible over the market's chatter. She stared at him, her heart conflicted. This was the man who had betrayed her, abandoned their child, and destroyed his own life. Yet she also saw a pitiful figure who had paid the ultimate price for his arrogance. Marriott placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder. "Come, darling, let's keep walking." As she turned away, Devon's voice broke through. "I'm sorry." She paused, but didn't look back. Instead, she murmured under her breath, I forgave you a long time ago, Devon. I just couldn't save you from yourself. Devon's final days. Devon spent the rest of his days on the streets of Miami, a cautionary tale for those who witnessed his decline. He was often seen staring at the ocean, lost in memories of what he had and what he lost. Occasionally, he would hum tunes from his youth or mutter Marcus's name, though few understood what he meant. One winter morning, he was found lifeless on a park bench, clutching a crumpled photo of Marriott and a young Marcus, the only possession he had kept through the years. Marriott's peace. When Marriott heard the news, she sat quietly in her garden, watching her grandsons play. She felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Devon's suffering had ended, but so had his chance for redemption. That evening she gathered her family for dinner, cherishing the love that surrounded her. Marcus raised a toast. To you, Mom, for your strength, your sacrifices, and for showing us the true meaning of resilience. Marriott smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. She had built a life of love and purpose, proving that even in the face of betrayal and pain, it was possible to rise above and thrive. Epilogue. As the sun set over Miami, Marriott watched her grandsons chase fireflies in the yard. The laughter of her family filled the air, a stark contrast to the lonely, silent life Devon had chosen. In the end, Marriott Bonvoy's legacy was not just one of survival, but of triumph. She lived surrounded by love, while Devon's name faded into obscurity, remembered only as a tragic figure who lost everything because he valued the wrong things. The universe, it seemed, had balanced its scales. A beautiful lesson on love and respect. Love is one of the most profound and transformative experiences a human being can have, but it is far more than fleeting emotions or grand gestures. Love, at its core, is about commitment, trust, and respect. It's not enough to simply say, "I love you." Your actions must reflect those words. True love uplifts and heals. It never belittles, betrays, or diminishes the other person. Respect is the foundation upon which love is built. Without it, even the strongest feelings will eventually crumble. Respect means seeing your partner as an equal, valuing their emotions, opinions, and individuality. It is about honoring their boundaries, celebrating their successes, and standing by them during hardships. It is through respect that love grows into something enduring, something that can withstand life's inevitable challenges. To love someone is to take responsibility for their heart. It means choosing honesty over lies, kindness over cruelty, and integrity over selfish desires. A heart entrusted to you is not a possession. It is a gift that requires care and understanding. When you prioritize respect, you create a safe space for love to flourish, allowing both you and your partner to grow together. At the same time, love must never come at the expense of your self-respect. Loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself in the process or tolerating harm. Healthy love is mutual. It is a partnership where both people feel valued and supported. Let this be a reminder. Value the people you love. Treat them with kindness, cherish their presence, and never take them for granted. Because once trust is broken or respect is lost, it is incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible, to rebuild. The way you treat others, especially those who love you, defines the legacy of your relationships. In the end, love rooted in respect is the only kind that truly lasts. It is the kind of love that transforms lives, mends wounds, and leaves a legacy of joy. Choose to love with compassion, to honor with respect, and to live with integrity, and you will create relationships that stand the test of time.